Hello, everyone, and welcome to First Tuesdays. I especially want to thank Emily, who managed to actually show up for this. And I don't know if you were one of the people that suffered through our technical difficulties a couple weeks ago. And a special thank you to Herrick for coming back and trying again. I think we've got things under control this time. Anyway, let me give you a basic introduction to our First Tuesdays webinar. I am your facilitator, and for technical support today, I know it says Jeremy and Joe, but Jeremy is the only person online today. Jeremy, why don't you put your contact information into the chat box, so if anyone has any issues, they can contact you. So First Tuesdays is a monthly webinar that is hosted by the Washington State Library, which is under the Office of Secretary of State in Washington State. And our funder is the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So I wanted to introduce to you our presenter today, Herrick Heitman, who works at the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library and has since 2010. Herrick received his bachelor's from Whitman College and an MLS from the University of Washington. He has worked for the Washington State Library for over 35 years, starting at the Penitentiary Branch Library, which he wanted to make sure you knew he was a civilian. Since then, he's worked in branches, serving the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Division of Developmental Disabilities, and the Public Health Lab. At the Central Branch, he worked with innovative databases, and Herrick is here to talk about assistive technology because that is something that they use at the Talking Book and Braille Library. For the people who are watching, or either here or watching this as a recording, we do have a survey at the end of the session. And those of you who are watching it as a recording and get this in an email, there will be a link to the survey there. It's just 4 simple questions. If you can take the time to fill it out, we'd really appreciate it because it's for our IMLS funding. We need to collect this data. So that's all for me, and now I wanted to let Herrick take over and tell us about his expertise and his topic on assistive technology. Thanks, Herrick.
Good morning. I'm Herrick Heitman. I'm the Electronic Services and Instruction Librarian at the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library, which is a branch of the
Herrick,
Washington. Yes?
Apologies, we're not seeing your slideshow. We're just seeing black screen at the moment.
Oh, there we go. All right, excellent.
And then if you do from beginning, we'll see your slides.
Okay, thank you. As I was saying, I work at the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library, a branch of the Washington State Library, which is a division of the Office of the Secretary of State. This is a very broad introduction to assistive technology with special attention as to how it will work on digital devices and how it will fit into your library. At the end, there's a list of resources I found very helpful over the years because I've had to learn this on this field on the job, and always look for more resources. Assistive technology is needed because people have disabilities. The main types of disabilities, and mind you, definitions of disability vary a lot, so you have to sometimes look at the fine print to understand the severity or the type of disability you're talking about. There are visual disabilities. This can range from color blindness to total blindness. Hearing can range from a ringing in your ears to total deafness. Motor disability can range from just arthritis making it hard to pick up a pencil, to being bedridden or needing a wheelchair to move around. Cognitive disabilities cover a lot of territory. They can be dyslexia, they can be developmental disabilities, they can be hyperactivity, attention deficit disorder. They vary from mild to severe. You can't always tell if somebody has a disability by looking at them. Never assume somebody is totally able-bodied just because they're not seeking your immediate help. Disabilities can come in combinations, and each person with a disability is unique. You need to realize that everybody has their own comfort zone, their own acceptance of their disability, and how they want to handle their disability. So each time you are helping somebody, treat it as a new case. The 2010 census has some really interesting numbers about disabilities. 19% of the US population have disabilities. And 12% of the population have a severe disability. You may not consider yourself disabled. However, as a disabilities rights activist once said, the bulk of the population can be considered TABs, T-A-B, temporarily able-bodied, because 71% of the population over 80 have a disability. And again, that comes with aging, and you need to know how stressful that is for somebody. People with moderate to severe disabilities are less likely to be employed. They're more likely to have low incomes. Really, the sort of people who need the services libraries can offer. And over, I find myself using assistive technology and accessible technology almost one day I'll use one, the other day I'll use the other phrase, because we're helping people get access to our library services. This was really driven, I was always somewhat aware of assistive technology, but it was really driven home to me when I started working at the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. It's a joint state-federal program. As I said earlier, we're a branch of the Washington State Library, but we're also affiliated with the National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, which is a program at the Library of Congress. We serve statewide. And since we're part of a nationwide program, people can carry our services with them when they go to another state. When somebody from another state moves to Washington, we can take over serving them. We have a statewide data patron base of over 9,000 people. The types of disabilities we serve, 50% are visually impaired. Macular degeneration seems to be a very common cause for people needing our service. 38% of our patrons are legally blind. 6% of our patrons are physically disabled, which means they can't physically handle a book. Reading disabled, dyslexia, developmental disability, things like that, make up 5% of our patron base. Deaf, blind, 1% of our patron base. All of these people share the same trait of not being able to read standard print. We're a free service, and we do whatever we can to serve our patrons. One of my favorite definitions of assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, product, or service that is used to increase, maintain, or improve independence. That definition is used by the Washington Assistive Technology Act program, or WATAP. I'll be talking about them toward the end of this speech. But the thing about assistive technology, it's all around us. My glasses are assistive technology. When my glasses are on, I have excellent vision. When my glasses are off, everything gets fuzzy about 6 inches from the end of my nose, and you really, really wouldn't want me to drive without my glasses. You just wouldn't. Well, let's start with the basics of assistive technology, because it doesn't have to be elaborate to work. The San Francisco Public Library has a good list of inexpensive assistive technology materials that it calls an accessibility toolkit. They have these toolkits at their branches, and accessibility toolkit includes a handheld magnifier, a magnifying sheet that's 8.5 by 11 inches, so it fits over a standard piece of paper, a signature guide, which is simply a little box that you can put around a signature line on a piece of paper, and it can help somebody keep within the lines while they're writing. This is very helpful for people who are losing the fine motor control in their hands. Paper writing guide and a reading guide. Again, that can help people focus on one line of text if they're using it to cover a printed page. So somebody can focus on one line of text only, which is helpful for people who have dyslexia, for example. It can also be used as a slightly larger version of the signature guide. So if you're writing something, you can keep on a line and look a nice regular job of writing. The kit has an 18-inch Braille and large print ruler, always handy. A Sanford 2020 pen. They recommend these pens because they have a very bold ink, and script is easily read by people. A book holder is one of those little plastic dealy bobs that you just slide on a pencil. Again, very handy for somebody lacking fine motor control. A book holder, which is great for somebody if they don't have the physical strength or ability to hold a book open. That way they can read turn a page, but still they don't have to physically handle the book as much. Headphones and disposable earpiece covers are also really useful. Why? For somebody who is deaf and needs to boost the sound on, say, a public access computer, or somebody using a screen reader on a computer. I'll be getting into screen readers later. Magnifiers really show the range of assistive technology. There are two here on this slide. One is a handheld magnifier. It's centuries old technology, old, but it still works. But we have to admit, it can be tiring to hold one for long periods of time. And then you can go into all sorts of variations on magnifiers. You have magnifiers that are on legs, so you can position them over something you want to read. There are magnifiers that have built-in LCD lights, so you can better see what you're trying to magnify. Then you have a very deluxe electronic desktop magnifier, which costs $3,975 before tax. Why is it so expensive? You can put a sheet of paper or a book under it. It can convert the text on that item to speech. Text-to-speech is a really, really great feature that comes with today's technology. There are multiple color contrast options, which means you can change the background color and the color of the text to make the text more vivid. This can be anywhere from some fairly blinding colors to simple black and white, just to simplify the image for somebody to see. This has a closed-circuit TV, essentially, with a high-definition screen. It's expensive, but it does a great job. And again, you can spend anywhere from $8 to $4,000. So you have to look at assistive technology and what am I getting the most use for? A sort of a return on investment question. What kind of features do I look for in assistive technology? This is a picture of the digital book player that's issued for free to patrons of the National Library Service and Watauval. It's a very well thought out piece of equipment, and it has features that work well for a variety of people. It has large keys, easy to find regardless of the level of vision. Some of the keys are color-coded. That's good for people who have partial vision. It can help them orient on the machine. And of course, if somebody's colorblind, they may not be as effective. It has tactile surfaces, something you can't really pick up from this picture is that the buttons have raised surfaces, and the symbols on the surface help somebody know that, say, it's a fast forward or it's a rewind. Also, you'll notice that there are a variety of shapes of buttons. Again, that helps people orient. And some of them are actually pretty self-explanatory, like the little crescent moon, which is a sleep button, so somebody can set the player to run for 15 or 30 minutes or 60 minutes while they drift off to sleep. You have the ability to adjust the performance. You can adjust the speed of the recording, playback, and some people like to do it at very high speeds. Other people like just the normal tone and speed of voice. Other people like it a little slow, so it makes it easier for them to follow. You can also adjust the tone. What we notice at the Talking Book and Braille Library is that as people get older, they often lose the high end of their hearing. So especially if it's a female narrator, sometimes they have to do everything they can to lower the tone of voice. There's a USB port for the peripherals. The peripherals include like a breath switch, flash drives. We offer a book downloading service, and you can call BARD, the Braille and audio reading download service. And people can download books onto flash drives, play them. And the nice feature about downloads from BARD, which I might add is only available to registered patrons of the National Library Service, you can keep the books for as long as you want. We have a remote control for bedridden patients that can fit into the USB port. And there's also a breath switch available for the player, which will at least allow people to do some of the basic functions like turn the player on and off, even if they don't have use of their limbs. There's also a book cartridge in front of that player. The book cartridge is really just a flash drive in a plastic case. It slips into the front of the player, and at the back of the book cartridge is a very large circular hole. So if somebody has trouble grasping the book cartridge, they can loop their finger into the hole and help maneuver it that way. One of my colleagues here is totally blind, and he refers to this as the golden age of accessibility. And it's all due to digital technology. Computers and digital technology give people with disabilities so much more access to the world around them. You have GPS, so people can navigate on streets. You have multiple options for getting reading material. And the computers and their operating systems these days come with a lot of built-in assistive technology, which is wonderful and at the same time challenging at times if you're working with those computers. Software programs and peripherals can make computers even more accessible. There's a wealth of software out there that can help people. And if you're ever using this, whether it be the built-in accessible features on your computers, or you've gone out and bought software that's geared toward accessibility, it raises a real question of how locked down are your computers? Because to get at the assistive technology that's built in, you're messing with the settings. Perhaps changing the settings is a better way to put it. But that might, your IT department might sometimes think you're messing with the computers. And you really do need to stay on good terms with your IT department, because there's so many possibilities out there, including possibilities that can come up the computer. Because for one thing, the accessible technology in a computer really can change the way it operates. Probably the first form of assistive technology you might notice with a computer actually are the screen readers. There are major screen readers out there, and probably the first, and in many ways I still think the most respected screen reader is VoiceOver that you will find in Apple devices, both Macs, iPods, iPads, iPhones. You can go in to your settings on your iPhone, and you'll find, under General, you'll find Accessibility. And then you'll find iPhone, and then you'll find VoiceOver option. Some people who are really comfortable using an assistive device like Siri on an iPhone will draw the line at using VoiceOver. The way VoiceOver works is that, say you have brought up the little keypad on your iPhone, you want to spell a word. First, you have to find the letter, and try this with your eyes closed. First, you find the letter, you tap it once, and then you double tap it really fast. That's one letter. You have to repeat it for the whole word or passage that you're doing. And some people just find that a bit too much work. And I've also noticed and heard stories, clerks in stores that sell computers, smartphones, often don't really have a clue about the accessible features. Windows has a built-in screen reader called Narrator that works okay. Then you have a couple of major screen readers from Windows users, people who are more power users on Windows. JAWS, which is fairly pricey, stands for Job Access with Speech. They have it on computers in this Seattle Public Library system. JAWS is designed to work with parts of Windows Office. It's very good for Word. It's very good for Excel. We have a lot of trouble with JAWS and Outlook on our computers. That's just us, but nobody else seems to have a better solution either. A second power screen reader for Windows is NVDA, which stands for Non-Visual Desktop Access. It's an open source program that's really continuing to develop very rapidly. It is starting to eat into JAWS's market share. Free open source compared to spending a lot of money. Android products have TalkBack. Chrome has Chromebox. But with these screen readers, which really make computers accessible to people with visual disabilities, it slows down. Screen readers slow down the computer performance. They can, especially with JAWS, and JAWS users who are really experienced can have JAWS speaking as speed that makes an auctioneer sound kind guy. Slows down computer performance. What JAWS is saying may not be what you're seeing on the screen. JAWS may be way ahead of you. Screen readers are only as good as the design of the websites they're working on. As a rule, websites are developed by sighted people for sighted people. And a lot of bells and whistles that look really flashy, really just, wow, that really makes it a whole new experience looking at this website. Not translate well, if at all, to a screen reader. PDFs can be inaccessible. There are guidelines for making accessible PDFs, and I'll talk about them later. But if you just scan a PDF and mount it on your website, there's a really good chance a screen reader won't have a clue what's on the screen. I've also noticed with people who are used to using accessible technology like screen readers is that there are a lot of these accessibility programs are really not mouse oriented. You learn hotkeys. With iPads and the like, you can also learn a whole system of gestures. I mean, we all know some of the basic gestures for a smartphone, how to expand the screen, that sort of thing. But, the power users, they know a lot. They can do a lot more. And watching them work is something like impressive at times. Computers also come with built-in magnifiers. The example on this slide is the built-in Windows magnifier. There are also commercial magnifier programs, such as Zoom Text, which now you can buy bundled with JAWS as Fusion 11. Magnified screens are great, but it takes some getting used to. It can be disorienting using a screen reader. I like really clean web pages. But if you're on a screen reader and you find yourself off in a block of solid color, all of a sudden it's, where am I on the screen? Where's the button I want to click? Where's the icon I'm looking for? It can take a while getting used to them. Also, if you're helping somebody use a computer program and they're using a magnifier, all of a sudden, when you're telling somebody, look for the button in the lower right-hand corner, it can take they're probably not seeing it, and they're going to have to try to navigate their way to it. Just one of those things you need to be aware of. With Windows and Macs, you can adjust high contrast screen displays, which really work well for some people. There are 4 examples on this slide. One is white text, black background, because after all, we're mainly used to colored text on a white background. Well, this is a reversal of it. Or you have yellow text on a black background. That really jumps out at you. Or a much, in the upper right-hand corner, contrast is a very high white contrast behind black text. And then you have really neon green, neon green text on a black background. And using that in combination with a magnifier, boy, does it pop out at you. Keyboards. There are 2 keyboards on this slide. The top one is just a regular keyboard. The lower one is a large print, large type keyboard. And there are different ways. Even with your regular keyboard, you can put labels and stickers on them. They're readily available to help make keys stand out. Keys can be modified with tactile guidance. Usually this is like adding a hard substance to certain keys, such as the control key or the tab keys, to help position hands. And you already have that on your keyboard. If you think about it, look at those little bars on the bottom of the F and J keys. They're to help position your fingers. I have worked with people who have had trouble using, say, JAWS on the large type keyboard, because to fit the keys in, they rearranged some of the locations, which did not work well with the person's muscle memory. All of a sudden, the insert key just wasn't quite in the right place. And that's one of the keys used in hotkey combinations for JAWS. Finally, how accessible is your library? This is a picture of Governor Dan Evans. Taken around 1973, Ralph Monroe, the Washington Secretary of State, challenged Governor Evans to see how accessible his office area was, somebody in a wheelchair. So, Dan went cruising around in a wheelchair. I've done similar tests in setting up small branch libraries. And it's a real interesting thing to do. I recommend that you do it in both your public areas and your staff areas. You'll start realizing that there are obstacles you never really thought about. Also, with some of the mechanized wheelchairs, the guideline is roughly something, I believe, like you should have aisles that are at least 3 feet wide. Sometimes a large mechanized wheelchair cannot turn around that space. Also, people who are using wheelchairs to access your stacks or whatever, if you leave a kickstand in the middle of an aisle, it's an obstacle. So again, use the wheelchair test. And I would say run web aim tests on your website and some of your handouts and your PowerPoint presentations. I'll get the web aim image. On the next few slides, some of my favorite resources to go to. And trust me, the world is full of resources on assistive technology. YouTube, there are listservs, very active discussion groups. YouTube for I think you can find YouTube videos on almost any piece of assistive technology you care to use. But some of the resources I found great. The Accessible Technology Coalition out of California. They cover so much territory. And look at these websites as starting places. Follow up the leads you find in them. It's a good research project. AppleViz. Oh, it's my go-to site for Apple products and assistive technology. They're and like many of these sites and many of the discussion groups, they're usually really supportive to both advanced users and novice users. Apple products are, because Apple really took the lead in accessibility for computers. They have a very loyal base of users. AppleViz, oh, I love it. Every time Apple upgrades its operating systems, Apple Viz goes through it and tells all the changes, improvements, and they're also very careful to point out any bugs they find. And you will find that with assistive technology. For instance, National Library Service and the BARD download service. You can download to iPhones, iPads. In one of the updates they did about a year and a half ago, all of a sudden on the display for the mobile app for BARD on iOS devices, the little line that you could use to control the speed of playback disappeared. Unfortunately, it was still there, so you could actually tap the screen and inadvertently speed up or slow down playback. It took them another update before they finally solved that. The Hadley School is a really good source for training materials on using assistive technology. They go into great detail on hotkey combinations. They also do and gestures, very detailed. It's very good reference material. Site Connection is an organization based in North Seattle, provides services throughout the Puget Sound area, basically social work, helping people adjust to loss of vision. They also have a very well-stocked store. And some of the things I mentioned, like labels, stickers that can go on keyboards, you can find there. Their store is a great go-to place for both things like magnifiers, but also a lot of just the domestic products, talking thermometers for heating water, that kind of thing, talking watches. Great place. Whoops. Resources. Partnership on Employment and Accessible Technology. I just discovered this a couple of weeks ago. Like I say, I'm always looking and I'm always finding stuff. Great staff training materials. If you have coworkers who have a disability, or if you are disabled, this is good training materials for your entire staff. Washington Assistive Technology Program. Great people. Again, this is part of a national program, and they do a number of things. They give people the opportunity to try out assistive technology items before buying them. And since, well, the magnifier was almost $4,000, refreshable Braille displays can run up to $4,000, $5,000, depending on how sophisticated they are. It's good to test drive the equipment before you consider buying. And they can help finance or get financing to enable people to acquire assistive technology. As was noted earlier, we're talking about a population that often has a lower income. They can't buy every new gadget that comes down the pike. So they test. It's really good to test. Make sure that you can actually use the item, especially if it's been touted as an end-all that solves all your problems. Sometimes the training backup isn't there for some of those products. Anyway, but with WATAP, you have good support. WATAP can also help people use and devise assistive technology just for day-to-day living. I was at a workshop and give one WATAP employee PVC pipe and duct tape, and you'd be amazed at all the useful things that you can make that will make people's lives easier. The University of Washington do it, which is really good for resources. The DO-IT stands for Disabilities, Opportunities, Internetworking, and Technology. It's a really good resource for students who have disabilities and how they can adapt. Finally, my contact information. I work at the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. We're located in Seattle, in South Lake Union area. We're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. People are welcome to drop in. We are affiliated with the National Library Service for the blind and physically handicapped, and that was misspelled. Again, a nationwide program serving people who cannot read standard Braille without some sort of assistance. And I'm Herrick Heitman. My email address, herrick.heitman@sos.wa.gov. And my direct phone number is area code 206-386-1254. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, Herrick. This is Nono. I had a question when you were talking earlier on about Braille and large print ruler. I didn't know what that was. Can you explain a little bit what that might look like?
It would be a ruler 18 inches long, a little bit oversized, but
I think I finally actually got it clear. So it's a ruler that instead of having print numbers on it is in Braille or large print. I was thinking this was a tool that would help someone with Braille the way some of the earlier technologies you talked about help them read. So never mind. I just suddenly, it all became clear.
Yeah, I really didn't go into Braille because that's a pretty specialized area. Braille is an incredibly sophisticated form of shorthand.
Yes.
And people, particularly people who lose vision at an early age, if they learn Braille, they are much more likely to go on to higher education. They're much more likely to get employed, to get jobs. It's because with Braille, you can actually very closely replicate. And I've also seen some embossed illustrations in Braille that are very impressive, really. Although I've seen like a map of both of the United States where they had to actually be broken down into about 7 separate sub-maps because they tried having so much on this one print map, so many different details that it had to be broken into pieces.
Well, Herrick, I would like to thank you very much for giving us extra time to do this presentation. I know that this is cutting into your day, and I appreciate that because we don't have a lot of viewers because of the
Oh, yeah.
scheduling. We don't, as a result, have a lot of questions, but I really thank you for doing it all over again with us, and it's been very interesting and informative, and thank you. Unless anyone else has anything that they would like to ask or add, we can say thank you to Herrick and let him get back to his day.
Yes, thank you for his patience with all the trials and tribulations we've had here.
Well, some of them were certainly on my part. It would really help last week if I would doubly made sure that Zoom text and JAWS weren't both trying to chime in.
Yeah.
And
once again, for anyone
they
who
do slow down performance when they're up and running.
Yes, you had a good illustration to your point today. So, for anyone who is watching, I would appreciate it if you would fill out the survey, which should be open on your screen when you close down Zoom. And thank you, everybody, especially you, Herrick. I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, everyone.